the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast Practitioner Brief. It's July 11th, 2022. I hope you had a great, relaxing weekend. We're getting ready to get into this week. A lot going on the weekend and on Friday, and then subsequently, it's impacting the start of this week. We'll be talking about some of these patches from CISCO Fortinet. We'll talk about the Rogers outage. Also, we'll talk about a CEO being charged with selling over $1 billion of counterfeit IT tech. And really, we have a real supply chain discussion for once. So all that on today's show. Before we do that and before we kick it off, my trusty double espresso. I hope you'll join me with whatever you're drinking this morning. Cheers. Let's get into CISCO patching a critical vulnerability in their enterprise communication solution. The announcement came last week, and it affects a critical vulnerability in the CISCO Expressway series and the telepresence video communication server products. It could allow an attacker to override files on the underlying OS with root privileges. According to CISCO, the vulnerability impacts Expressway Control and Expressway Edge, which are meant to enable remote collaboration for both mobile users and teleworkers. Multiple vulnerabilities in the API and in the web-based management interface of Cisco's Expressway series and Cisco Telepresence Video Communication Server could allow a remote attacker to override arbitrary files or conduct null byte poisoning attacks on an affected device. Tracked as CVE 2022-20812, a CVSS score of 9.0. The critical severity vulnerability could allow an unauthenticated attacker that has an administrator read-write privileges to override files on the underlying OS remotely with the privileges of the root user. Again, there's another CVE 2022-20813 that's affecting the Cisco Expressway series and the Telepresence VCS release. And there are updates now, so make sure you get your Cisco devices patched. Fortinet has also released a security advisory to inform customers about vulnerabilities affecting several of the company's products. The firm released the latest batch of monthly advisories, describes roughly a dozen vulnerabilities identified in FortiADS, Analyzer Manager, FortiOS, Proxy Client, Deceptor, EDR, and NAC, Switch Recorder, and FortiVoice Enterprise products. 4 CVEs have been assigned a high-severity rating. This includes CVE 2022-26117, which affects FortiNAC and allows an attacker to access MySQL database due to unprotected root account. Another high-severity flaw is a stack-based buffer overflow that allows arbitrary code or command execution. This issue tracked as CVE 2021-43072, affects FortiAnalyzer, FortiManager, FortiOS, and FortiProxy. A high-severity rating has also been assigned to CVE 2022-30302, a CVE assigned to multiple path traversal bugs in the FortiDeceptor admin interface that can be exploited by a remote attacker to retrieve and delete arbitrary files from the underlying file system. Again, patches are available for all of these vulnerabilities. Although none of them are dangerous, you want to make sure you get those patched. Hackers have used a fake job offer to hack and steal $540 million from Axie Infinity. The $540 million hack of Axie Infinity's Rodin Bridge in late March of 2022 was a consequence of one of its former employees getting tricked by a fraudulent job offer on LinkedIn. According to a report published last week, citing 2 people familiar with the matter, a senior engineer at the company was duped into applying for a job at a non-existent company, causing the individual to download a fake offer document disguised as a PDF. After what one source described as multiple rounds of interviews, a Sky Mavis engineer was offered a job with an extremely generous compensation package. The offer document subsequently acted as a conduit to deploy malware designed to breach Ronin's network, ultimately facilitating one of the crypto sector's biggest hacks to date. Sky Mavis employees are under constant advanced spear phishing attacks on various social channels, and one employee was compromised, according to the company. Just shows you the danger of the balance that you have to strike between social engineering campaigns and then your people's ability to be able to, if they want to leave the company and find a better opportunity to do so. And that line is just so thin, so complex. Yeah, $540 million later. So Rogers, the telecom company over in Canada, is experienced a significant outage, and the outage started around 5 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, where people were unable to make calls or access the internet. Um, it's had a huge impact on Canada, and a lot of people's internet connection. Rogers has confirmed the outage has not provided any status to it. Simply saying that there's an outage. They don't know where it's coming from. Um, a lot of unsureties here with this. Was this an IT outage or a cyber outage? They've been very, very, very quiet about it all weekend long. By the way, been tracking the story and I haven't seen much from it too. So we'll see how and what comes out of it this week. We'll be monitoring this Rogers story. And a new HavanaCrypt ransomware is being distributed as a fake Google software update. Researchers at Trend Micro identified a new ransomware family that is being delivered as a fake Google software update application. It's dubbed as HavanaCrypt. The ransomware performs multiple anti-virtualization checks and uses a Microsoft web hosting service IP address for its CNC server, which allows it to evade detection. During the analysis, it was also discovered that it uses a namespace method function that queues a method for execution and that employs the modules of an open source password manager during encryption. It's compiled in .NET and it's protected using the OfficeSecure open source OfficeSecure. HavanaCrypt hides its windows after execution, then checks the auto run registry for a Google update entry and continues with its routine. If the registry is not found, it proceeds with its anti-virtualization routine, which consists of 4 stages. First one is it checks for services associated with virtual machines, then for files related to virtual machine applications, then for file names used for VM executables, and then it checks the machine's MAC address. Should all the checks pass, the malware downloads as a file named 2.txt from a Microsoft web hosting IP address, saves it as a BAT file, then executes it. The batch file contains instructions for Windows defenders to ignore detection in the Windows and user directories. The ransomware terminates a series of running processes, including those for database application like Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL, and those of Microsoft Office and Steam. Then HavanaCrypt queries all disk drives and deletes all shadow copies, uses Windows management instrumentation to identify system restore instances and deletes them. It generates a unique identifier based on system information such as processor cores, NID, processor name, socket, motherboard manufacturer name, BIOS version, and product number. During encryption, the malware uses the crypto random function of keep password safe for generating encryption keys. The thread appends the .havana extension to the encrypted file, then avoids encrypting files with certain extensions or those in specific directories, including that of the Tor browser, suggesting that the malware author might plan communication over the Tor network, according to Trend Micro. Finally, a CEO has been charged with the sale of a counterfeit Cisco device to government and health organizations. Unor Axie, or aka Roy, the CEO of a dozen companies, was indicted for selling more than $1 billion worth of counterfeit Cisco network equipment to customers worldwide, including health, military, and government organization. According to the criminal complaint, the 38-year-old Florida man ran a massive operation at least as early as 2013 and 2002, importing tens of thousands of modified low-quality networking devices for as much as 95 to 98% off Cisco's MSRP from Hong Kong and Chinese counterfeiters through a network of at least 19 firms in Jersey and Florida. These devices were sold as new and genuine Cisco products through a dozen of Amazon and eBay storefronts to customers across the U.S. and overseas, some ending up on networks of hospitals, schools, government, and military organizations, per the indictment. The fraudulent Cisco devices sold by pro network entities came with performance, functionality, and safety issues that led to failures and malfunctions, which in turn generated significant damage to customers' operations and network. This happened because the counterfeits who sold the fraudulent Cisco equipment to Axie were modifying older, lower model products to make them look like genuine models of new and more expensive Cisco devices. The Chinese counterfeiters often added pirated Cisco software and unauthorized low quality or unreliable components, including components to circumvent technological measures added by Cisco to the software to check for software licenses compliance and to authenticate the hardware, according to the DOJ. Finally, to make the devices appear new and genuine, high quality, and factory sealed Cisco, the Chinese counterfeiters allegedly added counterfeit Cisco labels, stickers, boxes documentation, packaging, and other materials. Axie's companies, collectively known as Pro Network entities, generated more than $100 million in revenue, with millions lining the defendant's pocket. However, despite his effort to fly under the radar by using fake delivery addresses, submitting forged paperwork, and breaking shipments into smaller parcels, between 2014 and 2022, Customs and Border Protection Agents seized roughly 180 loads of counterfeit Cisco equipment shipped to Pro Network entities by co-conspirators in China and Hong Kong. In July of 2021, law enforcement agents seized 1,156 counterfeit Cisco devices worth over $7 million after executing a search warrant in Axie's warehouse. To top it all off, DOJ says that between 2014 and 2019, Cisco sent 7 letters to Axie asking him to cease and desist his trafficking of counterfeit goods. The defendant was arrested in Miami on June 29th, was also charged in the District of New Jersey the same day with multiple counts of trafficking counterfeit goods and committing mail and wire fraud. So supply chain remains a big issue here. Again, buying stuff off of eBay sometimes without a choice could lead to these types of situation. Making sure you're buying the right devices and checking them with the manufacturer is going to be critical. This supply chain issue impacted so many people. They don't name the victims, which just tells you how bad this is, right? If it was a bunch of small and mom and pop shops, it would have said it. But they're saying hospitals, they're saying military, they're saying large corporations, which lets you know you got to have your supply chain in order. And vendor management plays a huge part of that. Huge. That's the lesson of this story. One of them. There's many, but that's one. All right, folks, that's it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow with a lot more. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.